may have heard or may not have heard, but post-COVID, pretty much anyone involved with any sort of volunteer organization or nonprofit has stated that it is next to impossible to get people to volunteer. It is really, really, really hard to get enough volunteers to do the work that needs to be done. And here at Living Word, we are no exception to this rule that seems to be out there in the world right now. It is a struggle to get volunteers. It's a struggle to get people to give their time to the work that we have been called as a community to do together. So we're going to talk about that a little bit this morning, but we're going to kind of do it in a little bit of a different way. So I'm going to be beginning this morning with a question for all of you. Have you ever had one of those moments in your life where all of a sudden you realized, wow, I am getting older? Let me clarify, I'm not talking about the things that sort of come on gradually, like gray hair, or if, you're super fortunate like me, the light reflective, like blindingly silver hair. I'm not talking about aches and pains or like weird ailments or that more crotchety disposition that just seems to take over all of us at times. That's not what I mean. None of those just bam happen overnight. That's a gradual process. I mean those moments where all of a sudden you're just sort of metaphorically throat punched with some reality that cannot be ignored or escaped, but in no uncertain terms makes you very well aware of your impending mortality. Do you know of which type? Have you had these type of moments, some of you? I know everybody like under the age of, 35 has no idea what I'm talking about, but everybody over probably has had a moment like this. So for me, I had one of these moments like 3 to 4 weeks ago, somewhere in that range, when I was grocery shopping at the Cross Creek HEB near my house. And the music that they were playing in the store was like my jam. And I was like, okay, HEB, like I see you with your late 90s, early 2000s Y2K era playlist. I thought grocery stores played like oldies with maybe a little Kenny G-esque soft rock thrown in, to keep the target audience happy. And then it occurred to me, I'm 44 years old. I am the target audience. And my kids think this music is oldies. I am no longer young, cool, hip, or relevant. Throat punched with my mortality. When I got home from that trip, I told Opie about this revelation that I had had, and after he stopped laughing hysterically at me, he asked me, well, why do you think all of these bands that you loved so much when you were a teenager are back out on tour right now? It's because we and our peers now have disposable income, and we'll throw it at them during these bouts of nostalgia, which is 100,000,000,000% completely true. So this led us to talking about how earlier in our relationship, like so many of the concerts we went to were more bands that he was familiar with and were sort of like from his era, but I had kind of no clue and would just stand there and listen because, why not? Live concerts are fun. But wasn't really my thing. So between us, there's just enough of an age difference that not all of our music really crosses over. And we also kind of have pretty different taste in music, so stylistic preferences also contribute to this. But lately, more of the shows that we've gone to have been like my era and my bands. Groups like Dave Matthews, which was never my band, but I went to see him because I was like, I can say I saw Dave Matthews. I would never go see him again. He did not play hits. I was very disappointed. Or Dashboard Confessional, if you need some emo, like sad breakup music, they are amazing. Counting Crows, Alanis Morissette, Sarah McLachlan, live Soul Asylum and Stone Temple Pilots all in one concert. It was great. And at this point in time, I started thinking about some of these artists that I really used to like. And I asked Opie, hey, whatever happened to Jewel? Anybody else really like Jewel back in the day? Okay. You know how many hands I got raised at 8 o'clock? Okay. So I was like, why isn't she out on tour right now? Like, I would totally go see her. So I got out his phone and he looked it up and he was like, she is touring right now. with Melissa Etheridge. And I was like, what? Why don't I know about this? And I was like, wait, don't tell me. They're not coming to Houston. Because we have this whole ongoing joke about how nobody we actually want to see ever comes to Houston. They go to Dallas and Austin and just skip us. And he was like, yep, nope, they're going to Dallas and Austin. I was like, of course they are. But the Austin show just so happened to be the day after my birthday, which sort of felt like a divine sign telling us that we were meant to go to that concert. I mean, don't you think? Obvi, right. So we totally did, and it was amazing. Both of those women still have it, 100%. Melissa Etheridge, y'all, is in her 60s, but she can still blow out some speakers. Her voice is so powerful, it's amazing. I don't know how you tour that, but she does. So, as you can imagine, before the concert, I pre-gamed pretty hard in my car listening to their music. It was full-on carpool karaoke for me for 3 weeks. And during this carpool karaoke pregame time, I came across some of their music that I had totally forgotten of, all about, songs that I really, really liked and I forgot about. And one of those songs is the song Hands by Jewel. Okay, those of you who raised your hand and said you like Jewel, do you know which song I'm talking about? No? What? Okay, anyways. As I listened to this song in my car, it struck me how appropriate this song would be for Stewardship Month, especially this week when we're talking about giving our time. And I really actually wanted to sing the song for you guys because for the last 6 years, people have been asking me to sing a solo, and I was like, it'll be perfect. And then Ephraim and I looked into what it would cost for us as far as licensing fees for us to do that so we don't get in trouble. And I'm not going to sing the song for you this morning. Instead, I'm just going to read you the lyrics. So here it is. If I could tell the world just one thing, it would be that we're all okay. And not to worry, because worry is wasteful and useless in times like these. I won't be made useless. I won't be idle with despair. I'll gather myself around my faith, for light does the darkness most fear. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. They're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. Poverty stole your golden shoes, but it didn't steal your laughter. And heartache came to visit me, but I knew it wasn't ever after. We will fight, but not out of spite, for someone must stand up for what's right. 'Cause where there's a man who has no voice, there ours shall go singing. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. But they're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. In the end, only kindness matters. In the end, only kindness matters. I will get down on my knees, and I will pray. I will get down on my knees, and I will pray. I will get down on my knees, and I will pray. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. But they're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. They're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. We are never broken. We are God's eyes, God's hands, God's heart. We are God's eyes, God's hands, God's heart. We are God's eyes, we are God's hands, we are God's heart. The imagery of our hands being God's hands that is found in this song is not really a new concept. It's pretty much all over the Bible. It's in Psalm 8 that was read this morning when it says that humanity was made to rule over the works of God's hands, and these things were put under our feet. Every year in the ELCA, there's an annual God's Work, Our Hands Service Sunday. And we talk a lot about being the hands and feet of God in the world. But what we don't always talk about is how we do that or what that looks like. The issues and the problems in the world are big, and they can be overwhelming. And it's really easy to think that there is no possible way that we could ever make an impact or a difference. I'm just one person, and my hands are small. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I definitely feel this way. Actually, I feel this way a lot. Life can be overwhelming and tiring, and we get stressed and we get fatigued, and we don't feel like we have a lot of time. And I mean, why would my hands or my time be needed? So we hesitate. We don't sign up to help in places because we don't feel qualified, or we're afraid the time commitment will be too great, or we just assume that there's a better, more qualified, more capable person out there to do the work. Definitely think, to an extent, that's what the disciples were thinking in our gospel this morning. People were bringing their children to be blessed by Jesus. As Pastor Mark mentioned in previous weeks, children weren't valued or honored at this point in time. Their hands were small, after all. What good were they until they got older? So they weren't worthy of being near Jesus. They didn't have much to offer. So the disciples scolded and shooed away the people and the children. But Jesus stopped them and said, "Let the little children come to me. Do not stop them, for it is to such as these that the kingdom of God belongs." Jesus is telling them not to count people out because they're small or young or inexperienced. They still have a lot to offer. And if we're honest with ourselves, we do too. As I was reflecting on all of this and how desperately we as a congregation need people's time to do the work that God has called us to as a community, two thoughts struck me. The first actually came during the concert when Jewel introduced this song, and she told the backstory behind it, which I had never heard before. So she wrote this song when she was 18 years old. She'd moved from Alaska to LA, and she lived in her car for a year. She said during that year she experienced a lot, which I think we can all imagine, and that people weren't always very nice to her. Many did what I can honestly admit I have been guilty of at times, which was to avoid her, to not make eye contact, to cross to the other side of the road, to be rude and condescending, to an extent deny her humanity. But she said that there were other people who were so kind to her, who looked her in her eyes, who recognized her humanity, who gave her food and water, who put money in her guitar case as she was busking on the streets. And she said, "This is when I learned that kindness is currency, maybe the most powerful, most important form of currency that we have." When she said this, I thought, I give a lot of my time to a lot of places and a lot of people, but I'm not always kind about it. Sometimes in my heart, I harbor resentment or frustration or irritation. And often the time that I'm giving isn't really that big of a deal. And the work that I'm doing isn't really that hard or that big of a time commitment. And then this led me to my second thought, which was to be thinking about some of our children here at Living Word and how at our 8 a.m. worship service, which has sort of a growing number of families attending it, the children in that service have owned being our ushers and bringing the offering plates forward during worship. And how that started with one child. It started with little Robert Huttenhoff when he was 3 years old. He is older than that picture now. And one Sunday, he helped his dad usher. And then he brought the offering plates up to me in worship. And it was seriously the cutest thing. He took that job so seriously, like so seriously. And he walked so slowly, which his mom texted me between services and told me that he told her it was because he didn't want the money to fall out. But y'all, we were getting towards the end of the doxology, and I did not think he was going to make it. So I was ready to just jump in and start singing it again. And if we had to sing it 14 times till he made it up, that's what we were going to do. So a couple weeks later, his mom told me that he told her that he really liked bringing Pastor Ariel the offering plates in church because it made him feel helpful and important. Out of the mouths of babes. If we are honest, we all want to feel helpful and important, and like the things that we are doing and the ways that we are giving our time matter. I told Brandy at that point in time, as far as I was concerned, Robert could usher every single week because we struggle to get people to volunteer their time in worship. And if it makes him passionate about serving God and serving his neighbor, I was not stifling that. Very quickly, his cousins wanted in on some of that action, and then so did some of the other regular children who attend that service, and it kind of became a like, who gets here first and who gets to do it. And now we're like, I don't know, 2-3 years in from them kind of all owning that. And two of his cousins, who are a little older, are upper elementary and middle school, and you know what they're doing? They are seeking out other small children in that service and recruiting and shepherding them in worship and getting them engaged in serving and sharing their time. They have gone from being the little people who help serve to being the leaders who train. And that's slowly making its way into this service as well. We've got little Ace, who has kind of claimed that job. He is also 3 years old, and he brings those plates forward, although he is not concerned about things flying out. He'll march his little way up and take whatever speed he feels like, which is great. Small hands doing God's work. When we think we aren't the right person or our hands are too small, we just need to look at our children to learn how we are called to use our time to serve God and serve our neighbors. Because they do it without thinking. They do it without hesitation. They do it with joy and enthusiasm and kindness. And it all started with one. So I have a challenge for everyone this month. As we're talking about stewardship, and we're talking about how we're using and committing our time and our talent and our treasure to this congregation to do God's work in this community. Think about our children. Think about how freely they give their time. Think about how joyfully they serve. Think about how excited they are just to be a part of things. And then go and do likewise. Because to such as these belongs the kingdom of God. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. They're not yours, they are my own, and I am never broken. We are never broken. And in the end, only kindness matters. We are God's eyes, we are God's hands, we are God's heart. Amen.